as we wait for this button to go live. It was interesting. I had somebody connect with me after just going live, and they said that was the reason. So still learning about LinkedIn, live events versus just going live in a stream, and which is there a difference? All that good stuff. Speaking of strategy, we're here with Tony Dowling again for the second episode of Let's Build Your Strategy into HubSpot. Happy Monday, LinkedIn. Hope everybody had a great weekend. How was your weekend, Tony?
Yeah, pretty good. The usual family-orientated weekend. Bit of everything. Bit of leisure, or leisure as we say. Bit of yard work or gardening, as we say. I mean, I'm truly international, Chris, as you can tell. I can speak American. But no, it was pretty good. How about you?
It was good. I've been watching The Boys, the Amazon Prime show.
What a show.
Pretty interesting. Definitely binged through season 3 yesterday, so I guess caught up to season 4. Being in the US, I definitely catch a lot of the vibes that they might be representing, and
yes,
we won't go into that here.
No, that's a different show.
it's a good watch, I think.
Yeah, definitely,
for sure. So yeah, ready to talk strategy as always.
Let's do it.
I usually fit some of that into my weekend somehow too. I like to sit down on Sundays sometimes and nobody's there to send me emails or chats or whatever, and focus on some mapping and HubSpot and all these things. And today, like, you had a really compelling post last week, which I think everybody's dancing around this topic right now. We're starting to understand that, maybe there's an adoption problem when we have a CRM category of software, of business tools that, in my opinion, should be seen as the most important tool of a business. And we still have entire industries not using them, like after 30 years, right? So maybe we should do a little less selling. And like, why are we there? Why are we here right now where we still have that problem?
So it's such a big question, and I've the cynic in me, and I'm a salesperson myself, which means I'm cynical, I think, by default. But the cynic in me does wonder how much of that is to do with the selling of these platforms. Business is a business, and they need return, and they need to make money. And whether this is HubSpot or ActiveCampaign or Copper or anybody else, they're all going to sell, and they all tend to sell on this kind of features, benefits, or what we call these days this use case basis, don't they? So I find as a HubSpot partner, reps often tell my clients, "Oh, right, okay, so you want to do this thing? That means you need this subscription," which is an entirely fair comment, but doesn't really take into consideration what the customers need to achieve and the customer's strategy, right? That's what we're here to talk about today, HubSpot strategy. So what you get is somebody buying, may even be enterprise. I've seen it, an enterprise subscription that's it's like a rocket ship, as you put in your post earlier. I've been driving around in my automatic car, and my tools are right. An indicator and a gear stick I need to put into one position, and suddenly I'm sat in front of a Saturn V rocket with 150,000 brake horsepower of thrust and so many buttons. I think it's terrifying. So I think sales has got something to do with it. I think the other thing, there's an experience curve as well, and whenever you do anything new, you have to factor in the experience curve, right? Your performance level immediately declines when you do something new. You immediately you see the performance curve, poof, bottom, and then it comes back up, right? And if you're doing it properly, it comes back up. It comes past the point at which you adopted this new thing, whatever that new thing is, and then it takes you further on, because without the change, you won't get further on. So it's a little bit like the scalability question that we were talking just off air now is I'm a small business. I'm at a certain level. I'm not going to get bigger without doing something different. I can't just do the same thing and more of the same thing because I'm going to break. It may be I'm an owner operator, or maybe I'm 10 to 50 people. If I just ask for more, I'm going to break. The business will fall over. It will not scale. So I have to do things differently. And, without putting too fine a point on it, a CRM, HubSpot, particularly as we like to talk about, will be that catalyst. It'll be that thing that will take you on. Now, if you view it as that, if you view it as a strategic tool that's going to allow you to grow, it's going to allow you to move to a new position in your life cycle, it's going to, it's a genuinely transformational thing, and you don't delegate it off to somebody else to do it, and you don't put half an eye on it, and you don't sign off and then never look at it again. You're going to realize that it's a deep and vast plateau. It's a massive place for you, for what you need to do. And if you don't do that, then it becomes overwhelming. I think about the sales piece that I just mentioned. So the salesperson's advised me to use this feature or this function or this tool or this hub. I've forgotten all of that conversation. I don't even know where to start. Or if I'm buying it from that transformational perspective and I don't understand the architecture, I don't understand the fundamentals of what HubSpot is offering me. Again, I don't know where to start. I look at this problem. I see a vast problem. Was it you were talking about boiling the ocean last week? I see this vast problem, and I just don't know where to start. And this is why I think the strategy piece is so important. But strategy in terms of where am I in my business? What's my product? What's my market fit? How do I go to market? How do I sell? How do I deliver? How do I get the money? All of these things have to be built into HubSpot so that A, it's recognizable to you as a tool, and B, you limit the things that you do to the things that you need to do. Your eyes don't become bigger than your belly, as we say.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
lots going on.
yeah, and there's so much to be said there, but I think it'll be good to make an assumption here. Let's say you understand on some level that you've had some pain, you're scaling, you're growing, um, and you've chosen to invest in HubSpot since they were talking about adoption and of this tool
Yep.
that you've already invested in. So even on this page, and I think there's always an interesting balance to be had, right? Of you've grown a successful business, doing something right, doing many things right, probably, right? Um, Now the knowledge transfer required for scale, first of all, understanding you have to transfer knowledge in some way. You can't
Yep.
just multiply yourself, right? um, you actually can halfway get there with the right kind of videos and how to's coming from yourself, as the person who knows all the processes, which is where HubSpot can help with that.
Yep. Yep.
Um, but that's like finding that balance between not knowledge transfer, but also understanding what a system like HubSpot, like for example, the fact that you're not going to be passing a sheet of paper around, right? What could you do? What did that sheet of paper enable? And what did you have to do because it was a sheet of paper that you will no longer have to do because it's digital, right? Like scanning it into the system and making copies, or, things like that, filing it away, like in a hard filing cabinet, right? And like understanding those changes to not say, okay, we're going to change everything and just let HubSpot decide the process. That's not what we're trying to do here at all,
No.
right? But as I look here, and as you mentioned the things, right, uh, there's always a messaging angle, and we got to play this game of not overwhelming, right? Trying to keep it digestible. But when I look at these things, right, market your business, create landing pages, emails, set up ad campaigns, analyze. Like, that's huge. right? Generate sales. Oh, just engage with leads, just close some deals and report on those efforts, right? Each one of these is like for most small businesses, is a massive
Yeah.
undertaking,
Yeah.
right? But where do we start so often when we see the shiny object that is HubSpot is automate processes. Like after we should have done all this, we haven't. We don't have any of it documented, but we're going to somehow automate stuff to make our lives easier, right? And just bringing this in, and this is why we bring up things like change management. Like
Yeah.
you have no hope to automate stuff, and actually it's the biggest mess you can create if you don't understand your process, who's involved, as you're bringing in new people, you're scaling. Like we just see it every day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is, I mean, as such a good example of what you do. You jump in both feet, especially if the sales rep has, led you to believe, or even walked you part way through a workflow, something that could help you do something. I think about automatic data hygiene, for instance. It's a matter of a couple of moments to demonstrate Ops Hub and how it can help you deduplicate, how it can capitalize the first and the first letter of your first name and first letter of your, it does all these amazing things, right? So you think, right, okay, let's switch on Ops Hub. Now, it's not given any consideration as to whether the data in your portal is of any value in the first place, and it probably isn't, because it usually isn't. This is another one of these dirty little secrets. The data that you've got, that you've acquired, you need to put work into before even allowing it into HubSpot, right? So we don't want to start, I call it leaf painting. We don't want to start leaf painting when the roots, the trunk of the processes themselves are, are diseased, are damaged, or incomplete, or out of date, or anything else. So I don't know. Can I share my screen, Chris? Do I know?
Yeah.
Do you have to
Let's do
switch yours
that.
off? Let me just show you something we've been working on.
Because I think it'd be nice, right? Like, so as an owner, like, okay, I've got this, in theory, I've got this roadmap that just says get started. So maybe I am a patient guy. I understand how all this needs to come together. But what we're going to talk about is like the fact that this is in this knowledge base, over here,
Yeah,
right? It's separate from the process. And this is what I love about what's happening right now. Like to solve the adoption curve, and this is in many industries right now, like, and something I've been passionate about, this training problem, this knowledge gap that has been building.
yeah,
We, especially as digital comes into play, when you're there, when you're in an office and everything's hands on, and you got a team of people that have all went through the process together, and just there is an inherent like superpower created by the fact
yeah,
that you've all built tribal knowledge at the same time,
yeah.
right? So you forget to do things in process, but it doesn't hurt you because your colleague, say Tony's sitting at the desk right over here. It's like, oh man, Tony, I forgot to do this thing.
Yeah,
Can you just grab
yeah.
that real quick? Okay, now I can ship it out, right? That doesn't work when you're doing these kinds of systems. If I'm working remotely, right? If Tony's off that day, right? That kind of shit happens all the time. Like, oh man, this person's out. They have all the information. I guess we got
And
to
that's
wait
where
till
your
tomorrow,
scalability falls apart.
right?
That's exactly
Exactly.
right. So take a look. This is the actual HubSpot onboarding process, right? Now this is our version of it. This is our IP, if you like, as in Real Inbound. This is not from HubSpot. This is and all I wanted to do is just to show you the complexity. These are just the things that you need to do to get HubSpot set up for you and your team. This is without getting into using the tools.
Yep. And the
Okay,
situation
we've
I just described is organic complexity, right?
yeah,
That's been built up over time. And it feels simple in the moment because we've never had to like put it on paper. But it doesn't change the fact that, especially as customers, and this is why you need to scale. Like customers' expectations going through the roof. They're the ones telling you, I need better communication, I need better visibility, I need you to respond faster, right? And now you have enough to the point where you can't do it yourself. Your team of 5 can't do it themselves. How do you expand the capabilities of that team while also bringing new people into the system without creating a lot of chaos, right? Is what we're trying to accomplish here, while understanding you have built a complex system, whether you've documented or not,
Mm.
right? What you shared there is an important like understanding. Like this is not just, turn the system on. It's not just hit the button, or else you get in this situation where you're used to doing that in your car. You hit it on the rocket now, and uh, best case, you might make it to space, but who knows where the hell you're going,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. What direction you're going at, what speed you're at, and no, this is it. And this is where you have to start with these process maps. You have to start with writing out, or even just talking about it as a team. So if you've never captured your processes before, and the vast majority of the smaller businesses that we deal with, and some of the large ones as well, but the vast majority of them just never have. They've just not got them anywhere. It's not written down. It's not documented, right? So
Yep.
this is the first thing you have to do, because we want to transfer that strategy, because that's what we're talking about. What's our strategy? Or, okay, how do we do things? Who do we have to lean on? As you said, when you get to this one, who do you call? We have to capture all of that so that we can transfer that into HubSpot. Otherwise, it's just not fit for purpose. I think this works on a couple of different levels, because not only will you get to streamline, if you think about digitalization particularly, or transformation, the idea, or even strategy, a brilliant definition of strategy is that it removes bottlenecks. That's what strategy is, right? If you think about it. So when we're having these chats, not only are we getting to the point where we say, hang on a minute, that's a bit complicated. I didn't realize when you stand at 10,000 foot, I didn't realize that there were so many things going into this one bottleneck. And I didn't realize that we were costing ourselves money, or costing ourselves efficiency, or whatever else it is. All right. So not only do you fix those things in the planning stage before you get to HubSpot, but you also recognize them when you go into HubSpot. As you said, as a shared experience, as a team, you've been through it, you've captured it, you've refined it, you've removed the blockages, you've optimized it, whatever you want to say. And then when you switch on HubSpot, or you jump into the interface, you go into the browser, there it is. That's your actual process. And by that, I mean, the pipeline that your sales team follow is there, exactly the way that you do it, but improved. The ticket pipeline, in terms of the way you deal with your customers, is there, but improved, with the blockages removed. The data that you capture, the data that you need in order to understand your customers, is there. You've decided on it. You've agreed that all of this stuff is junk. We don't need that anymore. So we've removed all of that block. You go through that whole piece, has to be done. And then the critical part, I think, once you've done that, this is the gap then, I think, Chris, right? Because you could pay us as a HubSpot partner, yourself. I'm sure you could pay people to do that with you, right? You do it yourself. You could pay people to do it with you, and you have this massive piece of work. I remember 250 pages of report sent to us after we worked with Deloitte. This is not us, by the way. This is one of the corporates that I work for. 250 grand's worth. So it was £1,000 a page, I remember. And they delivered us this report, right? And then what do you think happened with that report? Well, you know exactly what happened. It got put in a drawer, and nobody ever looked at it again, because that's what happened. And this is what happens with your HubSpot, right? So you spend all this money, or you go to all this effort. And a lady talked to me today. Brilliant business. They're doing fantastic things, trying to scale. How do I do this thing? Will HubSpot do this thing on the subscription that I've bought? So I started to go in. Yeah, no, wait, for sure. I'll show you how to do it. Once we jumped in, I realized I'd actually already built it for her. In the onboarding that we did like 6 months ago, or whatever it was, I'd already built it. Now, I read over the weekend, you forget like 70% of the training that you've had within a week of having the training. She's just forgotten that process had been built in HubSpot, right? So you
Yeah.
spend all this time, all this energy getting your process maps together, let's say, if you do it properly, pulling out all the bottlenecks, systemizing, automating, doing all this brilliant stuff, and you get to this business as usual point. You get to this place where, right, I've done the prep, it's all been set up, whether you've done it yourself or you've done it with an expensive partner. What do you do then? And that's for me the gap, right? So this is the experience curve. Now everybody starts to look at what I think you might have knocked your mic again there, Chris. Everybody starts to look at what their job looks like now. Everybody starts to look at what work looks like now, and they fall apart. They go down the experience curve. The performance level drops off a face of a cliff. I don't know how to do this. I can't remember how to do it. I can't call on Tony now because he's, that before you can build back up, right? Before you can build back up and surpass the point you were at before you brought the system in, what do you have to do? And I think that's the big gap, the big gap. This is what I call it, the adoption gap, or whatever you want to call it. It's that piece of magic, that change management. That's what you call it in grown-up industries. That change management between setting the thing up, switching it on, and then finding yourself 3 months, 6 months down the road with the system as business as usual. That's where it goes wrong.
Yes. And I know I'm on a different mic now.
I can still hear you.
So I guess you might have to carry this because I can't switch mics while recording.
Oh, okay.
That's unfortunate. So can you hear me well enough?
Yeah, I can. I don't know if the listener can hear you, but I can hear you fine.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it goes, and I'll let you do most of the talking. But I think that, you mentioned, like, it's just such an important thing when we talk about, this is the difference between, like, um, you know, onboarding and training and enablement and empowerment, right?
Yeah.
Like, for me, if we're empowering somebody to do their job, it is not a one and done training, right? And I think that's where we make assumptions just because, like, it's hard. Like, and I liken this to you know EntreLeadership book I read a long time ago from Dave Ramsey. Like, I remember, like, as a manager, you need to say something 23 times for people to remember it, right?
Yep.
But then we create these training programs that are like, okay, we've got this new thing. Here's your once a quarter, once a year training. And then I think, to your point, it's like, and why maybe some of this has worked in the past. Like, if you're bringing in a new hire and you're training them how to ship something, and you train them one time, and then they do that like 20 more times that day, right?
Yeah.
Then that's where the training and knowledge transfer happens, right? But that's not how HubSpot usually works, especially with most of this stuff. And I learned this with all HubSpot users. The chances, especially when it's new, right? The chances that they immediately use that thing right after your training are very, very low. And the longer it takes for them to use it again, the more likely they are to forget about it, right?
Yep.
So what
So
we
you've
see
walked out of the
happen,
training room. So you've switched off the video group. You've finished watching. You finished reading the HubSpot knowledge base. You've watched the HubSpot video, whatever it is. You go and do something else. You go and do something else. You don't jump into HubSpot and then replicate and as you say, rehearse that motion 20 times so that it can turn into a habit. You just don't do that. So you come into it the next day and you're like, "What? How did I do that thing again?" That's that adoption gap. And I can tell you for a fact, as a digital transformation leader, it's my estimation, and I've made this estimation to any number of chief execs who are not happy, but this is the truth. It will take you a year to change the culture of your organization. And that is an every day, every week, every month focus. That is something that you have to do as the change leader every day in order to get people to do the things that you need them to do, to the point where they've forgotten what they were doing and they're now doing the new things. And that's another part of it. It is not fire and forget or set and forget. You cannot get somebody in on an induction call, on an orientation call, on an adoption call, or to watch a video. I mean, how many my God, we're freaks, Chris. How many HubSpot Academy videos have we watched? The customer isn't going to do that. The customer's just not going to do that. And worse, the operator, the person who's actually doing the job, they haven't got time to do that. The leadership are not going to do it. The operator is not going to do it. So you've bought this, and in some cases, this is 50, 60, £100,000 worth of software for the big businesses. But for a small business, it might be 4, 5, £10,000 worth of software. It's the same thing. It scales. You spent £10,000 on a piece of software that you never use again. It absolutely breaks my heart, but not because HubSpot don't get any more money because you cancel it and all that. It's not that. It's because it can be so transformational. If you go through the process that we're talking about, if you sit down in a room, capture all of your processes. I use AC/DC because I love a bit of rock. I look at how do we attract our customers? How do we convert customers? How do we deliver to our customers? And how do we collect the money? Right, because that's quite an important part. So let's break it down into those 4 issues. Let's map all of the processes for each of those 4 issues: marketing, sales, delivery, after sales. That's more or less what we're talking about. Streamline them, get rid of the blockages, make it easier, make it cheaper, do it faster, get people in front of customers instead of doing paperwork and yada, yada, yada. Build that into HubSpot. Then you've got to do something really special to keep that going to the point where HubSpot transforms your business. It's probably going to take you a year. Not a year with a partner. I don't mean that. Not a year of paying for somebody to do it. I mean a year of the leadership insisting that this is the way that it needs to happen. It's not easy.
Show us one of the ways that we expect to help people bridge this gap.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So
this is where, because the only way people have figured this out before, if they're struggling with change, but they know the investment's important, they know their team needs it. What we don't want to do is back people into a corner, because while it will get the job done, it's never going to be as good as letting people just grow into the process, because there's accountability situations, especially when quoting is involved, where it's very easy to say, look, you want your commissions, then the deal's got to be closed won in HubSpot, which I think it's not a bad policy. But when you use that as the thing, then they develop their own processes around making that thing happen as easily and shortcutty as possible, if that's a word.
Shortcutty. That's my new favorite phrase. You're a general on the field, right? You've got to cover your flanks. You've got to look at where you're making your advances. You've got to think about the reserves. When if your line starts to bend or you start to come under pressure, how are you going to backfill? For exactly that reason. So this multitudinal approach, I don't know if that's a real word either, where you do classroom, you do video call, you do reading, you do HubSpot Academy courses, but this is the aim of the app that you've just alluded to, the app that we're building at a minute. So I'll just share screen and show you that quickly, and talk you through at least part of what it's doing. Let me find the right. There you go. So you can see this is a typical HubSpot screen. This is my HubSpot screen, and on the right-hand side, my blue line is telling me you can't see it. Can you see the Sidekick app, Chris?
I believe I can.
It's got a little Sidekick title on the top. Hang on. No, you can't see it. One second. Let me reshare, and I'll need to share the screen instead of the window. That's all. Sorry about that. Share screen, share entire screen.
At the end of the day, we understand, just like we're trying to market our product, we need to stay top of mind. We need to cover people up with communication that we want them to understand and the message we understand. And that's why building it into the process is so impactful.
Exactly. So I've sharpened this down to some actual real world use cases that shows you. So I'm in my preferences. I'm in my settings, I should say. And maybe, I'm going through the initial onboarding process, and I envisage this as being an onboarding process that I'm undertaking on my own. Okay. So there's a couple of things that I can show you straight away. So I've got these little flags that you won't have seen in HubSpot before. These little flags are triggers that they allow you to click and find something contextual about the thing that you're puzzling about. So I want to know how to handle general. I want to know how to do this setup. So if I click on the trigger, it'll actually show me. In this case, it's got the process map of what I need to go through in order to get general to work. If I click on it on the accounts defaults, it shows, and this is a better way of doing it actually, it shows me it's got a bit of blurb and then it's got an actual video which I can play in line. I don't have to go anywhere else. This is where I'm doing the work. And if I pop over here, this is the actual onboarding walkthrough itself. And if I click on the walkthrough and I click to where I want to be, I click to the area that I want to go on. So I'm on general now. I can actually come in here and I can, again, watch the video. I can follow the diagrams to get me to where I need to be. And what we've done is we're building that for all of the onboarding steps, all of the onboarding processes. So we've got your account defaults, your users and teams, your generals, your notifications. You can see all the things that you require. Then we've got sections on data and what you need to do in order to make your data work, on the HubSpot tools, and then there's a repository of process maps. But we also got a load of guides in here. These will show you how to do things. How do I find deal settings, you may say to yourself. So we've got a guide that you're able to just click through.
One of my most popular posts was how to create a contact.
Yeah, honest to God.
And we skip over that stuff so much.
But
And this is where there's a bit of like, we take it for granted since we're in this HubSpot
because we've done it for 10 years. We've done it for 10 years. We do it over and over. And somebody says, how do I add a persona? And it's like, oh, for God's sake, honestly, I can do it with my eyes closed. Well, you may have shown that person once, twice, 5 times, but they've slept since then. Their job has gone on fire. They've had to rush off and deal with a customer. They've just forgotten. So we've got all of these guides in here that show you all that basic stuff. And again, right here in line, we've got process rules that keep you up. Make sure that your data is in the right place. We've even got updates in here, so you can send a message to everybody within your CRM portal to tell them that something's changed, to tell them that something's been updated, to tell them that there's a way of doing things. So I'm hugely excited about this work because it's going to I think it's going to fill that little gap that we talked about, that adoption gap. So I've had my onboarding, I've had my lessons, I've watched my videos. I can't afford to work with a partner every week, every month, like lots of bigger businesses do. Where's all that knowledge? Where's all that information? It's there. It's in the app and it's inline in HubSpot exactly where you need it. It's a real passion. You can probably tell it's a real passion for me. The opportunity that digital presents to smaller businesses, especially that scale thing you talked about. You will not scale beyond a certain point unless you do things different. If you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. You can't scale just by working harder. You've got to do things differently. HubSpot will allow you to do things differently. But when you buy it, go through the lessons, switch it on, and then look at it and think, wow, where do I start? It absolutely breaks my heart. It kills me, Chris. It kills me that this tool, this power is available to you and you can't access it. So that's what this LinkedIn Live is about. That's what the app is about, and that's our mission when it comes to HubSpot users. That's what we're all about.
It's a beautiful thing, my friend, and I think you're on the right track there. Love seeing stuff like that.
Thank you very much.
So as you've invested in HubSpot, if you're thinking about investing more in HubSpot, think about your processes. Think about how your team uses the tool. Think about how you want them to use it when you're not right there to help them.
Yeah.
Find some of these opportunities and let's grow. Have a great week, everybody.